Welcome back to the Gold IRA Blueprint Podcast. Today we're diving into something everyone considering Gold IRA really needs to know: how withdrawals and taxes work. I
hmm
mean, you want to enjoy those golden years, not spend them stressing over IRS rules, right?
Absolutely. Knowing how to tap into those precious metals without triggering unnecessary penalties is key. It's key to a smooth retirement.
Okay, so first things first, just a quick reminder that you can grab a free checklist over at goldirablueprint.com, exclusive. It's packed with tips to help you choose the right Gold IRA company, so you can rest easy knowing your investments are in good hands. Now let's unpack this whole withdrawal process. We know the IRS wants us to save for retirement, which is why they have that 10% penalty for dipping into your IRA before age 59 and a half. It's like they're saying, hands off that nest egg until you're ready to retire.
Right. It's all about encouraging long-term savings. But the IRS does recognize that life throws curveballs. That's where those exceptions come in. For example, let's say you experience a sudden disability or get hit with some hefty medical bills. In those situations, the IRS might waive that 10% penalty.
That makes sense. It's good to know they have some flexibility built into the system. But what about those required minimum distributions, or RMDs? We hear about those all the time, but they can be a bit confusing.
Yeah, RMDs are essentially the IRS saying, okay, you've reached 72, it's time to start taking some money out of that retirement account. They want to make sure those funds eventually get taxed. Now, calculating those RMDs can be a bit tricky because it depends on your life expectancy and your account balance. It's not as simple as just taking out a fixed percentage each year.
So planning ahead, and maybe even consulting with a financial advisor, is a good idea, especially as you approach that RMD age, right?
Absolutely. It's all about being prepared and making sure you understand how those withdrawals will impact your tax situation. Speaking of taxes, most Gold IRA withdrawals will be taxed as ordinary income. However, there's a nuance when you decide to sell the actual gold outside of the IRA.
I was just about to ask about that. Why does it matter if you sell the gold within the IRA versus outside of it?
It all boils down to when those taxes come into play. Within an IRA, you benefit from tax-deferred growth. You only pay taxes when you withdraw the funds. But if you sell that gold outside the IRA, you trigger a taxable event immediately. Let's say you bought gold at $1,000 an ounce within your IRA, and it grew to $2,000. If you sell it within the IRA and withdraw the $2,000, you'll pay taxes on that entire amount. But if you take physical possession of the gold and then sell it for that same $2,000, you'll owe capital gains tax only on the $1,000 profit.
Interesting. So there are strategic decisions to be made, depending on your individual circumstances and how you plan to use those funds. But one thing we absolutely need to avoid is those dreaded prohibited transactions. We don't want to get on the IRS's bad side, right?
Definitely not. Prohibited transactions are basically using your IRA funds for anything other than retirement. Imagine trying to buy a vacation home. Or worse, loaning money to a friend. Using your gold IRA funds. That's a big no-no.
It's like the IRS saying, hey, we gave you these tax advantages for retirement. Don't try to get clever with us.
Exactly. They want to see those funds used for their intended purpose. Think of it this way. Your gold IRA is like a vault. And those prohibited transactions are like trying to pick the lock.
So we need to respect those boundaries and keep those funds safely tucked away for our golden years. But speaking of keeping things safe, let's circle back to choosing the right gold IRA company.
That's a crucial step. You want a company that's reputable, experienced, and will guide you through the entire process, making sure you're complying with all those IRS rules.
Absolutely. And remember, you can find a free checklist over at goldirablueprint.com, exclusive, to help you compare different companies and choose the one that's the perfect fit for your needs.
It's a great resource to get you started on the right foot. Now, let's dive into some specific scenarios where you might actually be able to avoid paying taxes on your gold IRA withdrawals altogether.
This is where it gets really interesting. Tell me more about these tax-saving strategies.
Let's say you're feeling charitable and want to support your favorite cause. Well, once you reach 70 and a half, you can actually make qualified charitable distributions, or QCDs, directly from your IRA.
So I can donate to charity and avoid paying taxes on that withdrawal.
Exactly. It's a win-win situation. You're supporting a worthy cause and potentially lowering your tax burden at the same time.
Now, that's what I call a smart move. And what about those unexpected life events that can throw a wrench in our plans? Things like disability or, unfortunately, death. Are there special rules for those situations?
Absolutely. The IRS understands that life can be unpredictable. In cases of disability or death, withdrawals from a gold IRA may be allowed without those typical penalties.
That's reassuring to know. It's good that they've built in some flexibility for those challenging situations. But let's shift gears to a happier life event. Buying your first home. That's a huge milestone for many people.
It is. And the great news is that the IRS offers a special exception for first-time homebuyers. You can withdraw up to $10,000 from your Gold IRA, penalty-free, to help cover those down payment costs.
That's incredible. It's like the IRS is saying, go ahead, achieve that dream of home ownership.
Hmm.
But I'm guessing there are some specific rules around this exception, right?
You bet. The IRS wants to make sure those funds are used for their intended purpose. The home has to be your primary residence, and you have to use those funds within 2 years of the withdrawal.
So no buying vacation homes with this exception. It's all about helping people settle into their first homes. Now let's talk about another major life expense, medical bills. No one wants to deal with unexpected health issues, but they can really put a strain on our finances.
They care indeed. But here's the good news. You can tap into your Gold IRA to cover those qualified medical expenses without being penalized. Think treatments, surgeries, even those hefty insurance premiums.
That's a relief. But of course, the IRS probably has specific criteria for what qualifies as a medical expense, right?
Absolutely. Understanding those IRS criteria is crucial. It might even be wise to consult with a tax advisor to ensure you're meeting all the requirements.
Good advice. It's always better to be safe than sorry, especially when it comes to the IRS. Now, let's not forget about those of us who are saving for college, whether for ourselves or our children.
Education is a valuable investment, and the IRS recognizes that. You can potentially withdraw from your Gold IRA for qualified education expenses without facing those early withdrawal penalties.
That's great news for students and their families. But are there any specific requirements around this exception?
Yes. The beneficiary of those funds needs to be a student enrolled at an eligible institution.
So no funding your underwater basket weaving hobby with those IRA funds. It's all about pursuing a formal education.
Exactly. The IRS wants to see those funds being used for their intended purpose.
It's amazing that the IRS has built in so much flexibility with these exceptions. It really highlights the importance of understanding your options and planning ahead. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's touch on the crucial aspect of reporting those withdrawals come tax time.
Ah, yes. The paperwork. It may not be the most exciting part of managing your Gold IRA, but it's essential for staying compliant with the IRS.
So which forms do we need to be familiar with?
There are 2 key forms, Form 1099-R and Form 1040. Form 1099-R is like a report card for your IRA. It tells the IRS how much you withdrew from your account during the year. And Form 1040 is your good old annual tax return, where you'll report all your income, including those Gold IRA distributions.
Okay, forms check. But why is all this reporting so important? What's the bigger picture here?
Accurate reporting is crucial for avoiding those dreaded IRS audits and potential penalties down the road. It's all about keeping your financial house in order.
Got it. No one wants to mess with the IRS. So we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've talked about early withdrawal penalties, those essential RMDs, how withdrawals are taxed, and those absolute no-nos when it comes to prohibited transactions. We even explored some exciting exceptions that might just save you a bundle in taxes.
It's all about being informed and proactive.
Now, before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, let's take a quick pause and remind you about that free checklist. Head over to goldirablueprint.com for exclusive to grab yours. It'll help you navigate the sometimes confusing world of gold IRAs like a pro. Trust us, it's a game changer.
Welcome back to the Gold IRA Blueprint podcast. In the last segment, we talked about the ins and outs of Gold IRA withdrawals. But let's face it, the rules of the game can change.
That's true. The financial world is constantly evolving. What kind of future changes should we be prepared for when it comes to Gold IRA withdrawals and taxes?
Well, one of the biggest things to keep an eye on is tax rates. They can fluctuate, which means what you pay in taxes today might be different tomorrow.
Okay, so we can't just set it and forget it. We need to stay informed about potential tax rate changes. But are there any other rule changes that could impact our Gold IRAs down the road?
Definitely. Retirement account rules, including those specific to Gold IRAs, can be tweaked. Things like contribution limits or even the rules surrounding those exceptions we talked about could be adjusted.
So staying up to date is key. We need to keep our fingers on the pulse of any changes that could impact our retirement strategy.
Exactly. Think of it as keeping your financial GPS updated. You don't want to end up on a detour you didn't anticipate. Now, before we go any further, let's take a moment to acknowledge that navigating these complexities can feel overwhelming.
It's true. There's a lot to consider, but that's why we're here to break it down and make it digestible.
Absolutely. And remember, you're not alone in this journey. Seeking guidance from a financial advisor who specializes in gold IRAs can provide valuable peace of mind.
That's a great point. Having an expert in your corner can make all the difference. Now, speaking of expert advice, let's circle back to the importance of choosing the right gold IRA company.
That's a decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. It's like choosing a co-pilot for your retirement journey. You want a company that's not only reputable and experienced, but also aligns with your values and investment goals.
Absolutely. They should be your trusted guide helping you navigate those IRS rules, offering a diverse selection of precious metals and ensuring the secure storage of your assets.
Exactly. It's a partnership, not just a transaction. And to help you find the perfect partner, we have a fantastic resource, our free checklist, available at goldirablueprint.com, fact exclusive.
That checklist is like having a cheat sheet for choosing the right gold IRA company. It's packed with tips and insights to help you make an informed decision. Now let's shift gears and delve deeper into some specific questions that often come up regarding gold IRA withdrawals.
Sounds good. It's time to tackle those frequently asked questions head on.
Let's start with the basics. What are the fundamental IRS rules governing gold IRA withdrawals? What do people really need to know?
The IRS has very specific guidelines in place for these types of retirement accounts. These rules aren't designed to be tricky, but to protect the integrity of the retirement system and ensure everyone's playing by the same rules.
Right, it's all about fairness and maintaining order. But those rules can feel a bit daunting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those early withdrawal penalties again. I know we touched on them earlier, but it's worth reiterating why they exist.
Those penalties are designed to discourage people from tapping into their retirement savings before they actually retire. That 10% penalty is essentially a deterrent.
It's like the IRS saying, we're serious about you saving for retirement. Don't even think about touching those funds early unless it's absolutely necessary.
Exactly. And remember those exceptions we talked about. Those are for specific situations where the IRS recognizes that life has thrown a curveball.
Right. Things like medical emergencies or disability. It's good to know they have some compassion built into the system. Now let's talk about the actual tax rate applied to gold IRA withdrawals. What can people expect?
The tax rate depends on the type of IRA you have. Traditional IRAs are taxed at your ordinary income tax rate, while Roth IRAs offer the potential for tax-free withdrawals if you meet certain conditions.
So choosing the right type of IRA from the start is a crucial decision that can significantly impact your tax liability down the road.
Absolutely. It's all about planning strategically and aligning your IOA choice with your long-term financial goals.
Now, what about rollovers? Can you move your gold IRA funds into a different account without triggering a tax liability?
Yes, you can. It's called a direct rollover, and it's a powerful tool for managing your retirement funds. As long as you follow the proper procedures and complete the rollover within 60 days, you can avoid any immediate tax consequences.
So you're essentially moving those funds from one sheltered account to another, preserving their tax-deferred status.
Exactly. It's like a seamless transfer, keeping those funds protected and growing towards your retirement goals.
Now let's talk about inherited gold IRAs. What happens when someone inherits a gold IRA? What are the tax implications?
Inherited gold IRAs are subject to taxes, but the specifics depend on the relationship between the beneficiary and the original account owner, for example. A spouse inheriting a gold IRA might have different tax rules applied than a non-spouse beneficiary.
So it gets a bit more complicated when we're talking about inheritance. It's important to understand those nuances and seek guidance from a tax professional or financial advisor who specializes in inherited IRAs.
Absolutely. Inheritance and estate planning are complex areas, and it's essential to have the right expertise on your side.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our discussion, let's circle back to those early withdrawal penalties one last time. I know we've covered them extensively, but are there any other exceptions we haven't touched on yet?
We've discussed medical expenses, disability, and first-time home purchases, but there's also an exception for qualified higher education expenses. If you're withdrawing funds to pay for college tuition or other eligible education costs, you might be able to avoid that 10% penalty.
That's a great reminder for families saving for college. It's yet another example of how the IRS has built in some flexibility to accommodate life's big events. But remember, even if you qualify for an exception, taxes might still apply to the withdrawal. So it's always best to consult with a financial advisor to make sure you're making the most informed decision.
Exactly. Don't assume anything when it comes to the IRS. Always double-check and seek professional guidance when needed.
Now, as we move into the final part of our Gold IRA deep dive, I want to emphasize the importance of choosing the right Gold IRA company. It's a decision that can significantly impact your long-term financial success.
Yeah, it really is. And, we've talked about a lot, haven't we? all those ins and outs of gold IRA withdrawals, and all those tricky tax rules. We even talked about some smart ways to potentially avoid those penalties. But like at the end of the day, it all comes down to choosing the right partner, someone to guide you through this journey.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Selecting a reputable gold IRA company, it's like finding a trusted captain to steer your retirement ship. You know they should be experts in navigating those IRS waters, offering you a diverse selection of precious metals, and providing secure storage for your treasure.
Exactly. It's about finding a company that not only understands the rules, but also aligns with your own individual needs and goals. They should be like your advocate, your educator, and your protector. Exactly. Think of it as a long-term relationship built on trust, transparency, and expertise. And to help you find that perfect partner, we have a fantastic resource, our free checklist available at goldirablueprint.com, site exclusive. It's packed with, insider tips and essential questions to ask potential gold IRA companies.
That checklist's amazing. It's like having a secret decoder ring for choosing the right company. It'll empower you to make informed decisions and set yourself up for a successful retirement. So don't wait another minute. Head over to goldirablueprint.com/exclusive and grab your free checklist today.
It's the best investment you can make for those golden years, and we're here to support you every step of the way. So if you have any questions or need further guidance, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, we're always happy to help you navigate those gold IRA waters. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. Gold IRAs can be a powerful tool for diversifying your retirement portfolio and potentially hedging against those market ups and downs. But it's crucial to understand the rules, plan strategically, and choose the right partner to guide you along the way.
You got it. Knowledge is power. And when it comes to your retirement, it's the most valuable asset you can have. So stay informed, stay proactive, and never stop learning.
Well said. That's the Gold IRA Blueprint philosophy, empowering you to take control of your financial future and sail smoothly into those golden years. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And remember, the journey to a golden retirement starts today.